Hello YouTube. Last week I heard that Ronnie James Dio was diagnosed with the early signs of stomach cancer. And I have to say, when I heard that Ronnie James Dio was diagnosed with this, I was really saddened because I've always been a huge fan of Ronnie James Dio. I've been a fan of Ronnie James Dio since he was with the band Rainbow. I've been a fan since he formed his own band, Dio, and with the other projects he's done with Black Sabbath and the current Heaven and Hell thing that he's doing with the members of Black Sabbath. Always been a huge fan of Dio. And like I said, when I heard that he was diagnosed with stomach cancer, it just really saddened me. But it's the early stages of stomach cancer, so hopefully they'll be able to treat that and things won't, get any worse for him. I first learned about Ronnie James Dio. Well, I've always heard his music, but I think I really started to pay attention to his music one night when I was watching Headbangers Ball in the, I think it was like the early 90s or late 80s or whenever. But I remember listening to Rainbow in the Dark, and I was just completely floored when I saw that video on Headbangers Ball, and I was like, wow, who is this singer? And it turned out to be Ronnie James Dio, and I was just floored by the strength and the power of his voice. You don't get that many really good heavy metal singers that's out there that can really carry a tune like Ronnie James Dio. And one of the things I like about his voice is he can sing something like really tender, and then he can sing stuff that's really hard and aggressive. And a lot of heavy metal singers, they can't really pull that off. It's not as well as Ronnie James Dio. So that's one of the reasons that I've always been a fan of his. Like I said, since Rainbow, since all of the projects he's done, huge fan of Ronnie James Dio. And another thing that I like about Ronnie James Dio is the fact that if I'm not mistaken, he's 67 years old, and he's still putting out product. Still singing metal. He's still touring the world, and I look forward to seeing him next time he's here in Detroit. Only reason why I missed him the last time he was here is because I had to work and I couldn't get the day off, so I had to miss him. But second from the last time, if I'm not mistaken, second from the last time that he was here, I did see him at the State Theater, and it was one of the best concerts I've seen in the State Theater or seen, period. He can really give a great show, and I wish I would have saw him back in the really the early '80s, because he was one of those artists that would really go out of his way to give you a stage show. Bands like Kiss, Dio, the early Parliament Funkadelic, even Ozzy. When you saw them in concert, you saw more than just music. You saw something theatrical. And that's one of the things I've always liked about Dio. Now, when I saw him at the State Theater, he didn't have anything like really, theatrical. Now, I don't think any artist out there, unless they're like mega rich, any artist out there really gives a stage show like they did back in the 70s and the 80s. And a lot of you guys who watch this video who are a lot younger than me, you're really missing out, because those shows back in the early, well, in the 70s and the early 80s they really blew away a lot of the shows that you see now. A lot of the props and a lot of the what you would call the theatrical part of it is really lost. And the reason why that's lost is because no one can afford to bring all that stuff in concert anymore. You know, it just costs too much money. So a lot of times when you go see bands, even the older bands, um, you'll see an excellent show, but you won't necessarily see all of the circus that was involved, the theatrical stuff. But even though Dio didn't have a lot of the theatrical stuff when I saw him, it was his music made up for it a hundredfold. And like I said, huge. I've always been a huge Dio fan. And you know, one of the things I remember talking to a friend of mine about is we were talking about pagan music and how some of the music that we've grown up listening to within rock and roll really has a pagan sound to it and has a lot of pagan themes and whatnot, and we can claim some of that as our own. And Ronnie James Dio always sung about dragons and kings and queens and things along that nature, and it's always had a medieval feel to it. Back when he was with Rainbow, and with his current stuff too. So being a young pagan listening to this stuff, I always saw a lot of rock and roll as being sort of like my soundtrack on life and how I viewed. It's just expressed a lot of ideas, magical ideas that I had personally. And Dio was definitely one of those artists that put out that type of material that I really liked. So, to Dio, if you ever watched this, or if any associates of Dio ever watched this, I hope you get better, Ronnie James Dio. I hope you make music to your 150 or whatever. I've always been a fan. I've always bought Ronnie James Dio's albums, CDs, DVDs. Always been a huge fan ever since the 80s. Ever since I heard him on Headbangers Ball. Even before I saw his first video on Headbangers Ball, I was a huge fan of Ronnie James Dio. So I hope you get better, and I look forward to seeing you the next time you come here to Michigan. And be well, Ronnie James Dio, if you ever see this. Okay, so until next time, love is the law. And remember, the world is full of kings and queens. They blind your eyes and steal your dreams. It's heaven and hell. Peace.